crisis and economic depression, small business owners often struggle with making sales and keeping the loyalty of their people because if you ain't selling, it's hard to pay the bills.
On the Ethical Sales Podcast, you will learn new ways to selling ethically and communicating with your people to create more loyalty and getting out of the rut of stress and frustration.
When there is plenty of sales, there should be plenty of profits to keep things flowing smoothly and everybody be happy. All right, we live again. Let's try this again. I mean, I tell you what, we've had all kind of interruptions. We've had we were about 2 minutes into this podcast and our electricity went off. I don't know what happened. Somebody hit the pole or what, because it's beautiful weather out there.
Ours blinked a couple times. It ain't that great out there right now. It's been overcast. It's been, just north of us, we got a big storm brewing over the lake. Yeah, that's what's going on.
It's been a rainy week. It's been a real wet week. Mosquitoes everywhere. We got a real mosquito problem.
It's worse than the time it was so bad.
I know. Like, I want to go out and just do things outside the house. I got some projects to do, and it literally is so bad, like, it takes all the fun away. And I sprayed for them, but I don't know. Didn't do a whole lot of good.
Why are we talking about mosquitoes? Let's get into this thing. Let's talk about closing the deal. Sometimes you just have to say it as it is, Sometimes you just have to tell people how it is.
We're going to skip introductions today, go straight to this.
I don't know.
We're going to go straight to closing the deal. Let's go. Owen's the only one that needs an introduction. He's actually the one that is the most.
What are you talking about? He's famous. His phone's the only phone that's been ringing all morning.
He's the important one here because without that man right there, if you listen to this podcast, you like it, give us a good review.
Go give him a thumbs down or something. A thumbs up or something.
Yeah, do it for him because.
Give him a 5-star review. Send him a bag of cookies. Do something nice for him.
If it wasn't for him, this podcast wouldn't happen. So, and we hope we bring something to you that can benefit you for your business and your family and, I don't know, education.
Maybe it's all about changing lives.
Yeah.
It's either about changing lives or entertaining people, one or the other. I'm not sure which.
Well, that's the main reason I bring you guys on is for,
entertainment.
Keep it lively. I didn't say the word entertainment, but there is something to that. If you like what Matt and Elias are bringing, 5-star rating and a review be awesome. Show them some love.
You want to change a life? Give a 5-star rating and a review. That changes Owen's life. He will live on a high for a week from one.
And a lot of other people's too, because the more ratings and reviews you get on Apple Podcasts, the more people see the podcast. That's how it works on
So
Apple
you could potentially really change more lives than you even know that you can.
I got a question.
We actually hit the top 125 in Apple Podcast chart. So if you went to business in the one category, we were at like number 125 in the United States. In the United States.
People listen to this?
Absolutely.
Really? I didn't know we had any listeners.
Surprise.
Just kidding. All right, boys. We're going to talk about closing the deal today. We got a good little segment that I think we're going to talk about because if you're not closing the deal, somebody else is.
If you're in business for yourself, I think the number one very high on the list is close the deal, because if the deals aren't being closed, there's no business to be had. There's nobody benefiting from your service and from your business. You are not benefiting from your customers. There's no mutual benefit happening. So you have to close the deal. You have to close the door. If you don't, somebody will.
What are some things that should be in place so you can close the deal? Like, let's unpack that. What happens before you get to the closing part of the deal? What needs to happen? What should happen in order to close it easily?
Well, there should have been a relationship built at some level, because where there's a relationship, there's also influence. Where there's a lack of a relationship, there's probably not a whole lot of trust. And so, we're not talking about a transactional business where you're selling something online. We're talking about you actually walking into this person's office. Primarily, our listeners are in the roofing business and the construction business and, a hands-on kind of a business where you're selling services and products. And so you're actually walking in and, trying to sell your deal. When you're asking for a lot of money, and it's not uncommon for guys in our team to sell projects that are over $100,000, you probably need to build some kind of relationship before somebody's going to trust you with that exchange. It doesn't happen very often that you're just going to walk in and close the deal. If you're going to say it's an $80,000 project and he's just going to say, yeah, I want you to do this roof right away. It's $80,000. So they want to know that you're the right guy for the job. Even above your products, there's a lot of people out there with a lot of great products, but you, as a person selling that service, is who they're really buying.
It also, I think, depends where the leads come from. Let's say you're just doing a campaign where you're dropping flyers, which gets done a lot in our industry. Well, that person that's calling you probably has never seen you, probably has never met you, probably doesn't have a clue who you are. So the first time you come out, it's the first time he's ever seen your face. It's a good idea to put, like, if you can, put your picture on the flyer, because when they see your face, they might think they know you a little bit more, and they're a little bit more likely to, like, the relationship feels like it's a little further along because they've seen your face a couple times. But if the lead's coming from, let's say you have a YouTube channel and you got somebody that follows you on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, places like that, think about somebody that you know today that you've never met, but you know this person because you've followed him for a long time, but you've not actually met him. Now, the first time you meet that person and you go to do a $20,000 deal, you're way more likely to do the deal the first time than if you've never followed him and never actually, because you actually, even though he don't know you, you feel like you know him, but you've never met him. And so, I think it depends where your leads come from, and depends, those kind of things, and how, ask the person, hey, where'd you hear from us? And those kind of things tip you off. And I know a lot of you guys, we talked about this earlier. It's good to have some social platforms that you're using to kind of get your name out there. And you can kind of get a little more warm leads from people, because you have really no way to know who all knows who you are and has maybe watched you 10 times. If you're doing videos where you're putting posts out there saying, that might have the process of a roof, for example, that you've just completed, and that person watched it and they feel like they know you. Relationships are huge. So I think you have to build those relationships, especially if you're selling high-end products. You have to have relationships with those people. And I told this to somebody the other day, and this was pertaining in our industry. We kind of put together teams of contractors. It seemed like in order to get a new contractor to come on board, it's almost like you have to build that relationship to where you know each other almost personally before a lot of people move forward. So there's a half a dozen conversations that happen. It's seldom that you talk to somebody one time and, yep, let's do this. And knowing where you're at in the deal is big. Knowing where you're at. What stage are you? Does he need more information? Is he ready to close? What's the person's personality? All those kind of things, to where you can kind of see where you're at in the process.
And you have to also be sold yourself. If you're not sold yourself on what you're selling, it's very difficult to make that sale, because you're going to sell as you're sold. Somebody that is very sold on something, it's pretty easy to do in our hobbies and our recreation and the things that we enjoy. You get together with your buddies and you're showing them your latest gadget. We like to hunt and fish. You're showing them we're always showing them our latest guns or our bows or whatever. I changed a broadhead or I changed an arrow, and we're super passionate about it. And we get very opinionated about our things that we're passionate about. It's the same way. It should be the same way in your business. What you're selling, you should be so sold on it that if your customer doesn't move forward with you as the solution to your roofing system or whatever you're selling, you're persuaded in your mind that customer is going to lose. And when you have that level of conviction, it sells. It really helps to sell, because there's so many nonverbal things that are involved in selling and helping people make decisions. And that's the number one thing. I mean, you have to be sold, first of all, on what you're selling. If you're going to go into a deal and you're going to say it's a $50,000 project, and you think that project's only worth $30,000, or you think $50,000 is too much ask for what you're selling, you're probably not going to sell it. It's not even that. If you think $50,000 is a lot of money, it's hard to sell $50,000. Well, $50,000 is a lot of money to a lot of people. But if you're going to go in there and you're going to be persuaded that $50,000 for that project is, you need to be sold on what you're providing. The value that you're providing, it's higher than $50,000. You're selling for $50,000, it's valued at $75,000. And I had a building owner a couple of years ago. He told me, I forget the system. I think we're bidding a foam system for him. And it wasn't a real big job. It was like $25,000 or something. I guess he told a buddy of his that he's looking at doing this job. And his buddy was like, hey, I could come up there and I could do just roll some black rubber up there for, I think it was like $18,000 or $19,000. And I was like $6,000 more for the system I was doing rather than a buddy deal. He's like, I think I might just have my buddy roll that stuff out. It just kind of sticks on the roof, and I think it's $6,000 less or whatever. He's like, I think that's the route we're going to go. And I said, that's fine if that's what you want to do, But I said, in comparison to the system I'm bidding, you'd be better off spending 50 grand with me than putting that on for 20 grand. And he was like, really? I said, yeah. I said, that's the difference. In a couple of years, you're going to be wishing you wouldn't have done that because now we got to tear it off and start back over. And he was like, huh. And my dad and his guys actually went out and did the job, and he was laughing to my dad. He was like, you know how your son sold this roof to me? You know, and he told him the story. But it's just, you sell as you're sold. I'm so sold on that system that we're selling that he's not going to have to touch that roof for the next 20 plus years. And if he was going to do something else, even though it was $5 grand less, it was going to create a mess and going to be a $40,000 job for us now instead of a $25,000 job. It's that conviction. It's just being so sold on what you're selling. And people feel that.
People tend to rise up to your expectations. So when you say what you said, people tend to rise up to that. You know, there's a lot of scenarios that, you know, that are similar to that. You know, just going out there and selling with a lot of conviction and making sure your customer understands the value that they're getting. You know, making sure that you're doing a good job of explaining to the customer exactly what he's paying for and what he's getting in our industry, helping that person understand the life that they're going to get out. Even breaking it down to say, look, this roof is only costing you this much per year. If you want to break it down, this roof is only costing you this much per day. You know, you can make it sound ridiculous. How much do you spend in coffee every day? $5. Is it worth $5 to have a dry roof or dry building? Yeah. Well, that's all I'm asking you for. You know, and you can dumb it down to where it sounds like absolutely nothing. People do this in the car industry.
Dude, we could probably get really rich coming up with some kind of a program that makes people pay, you know, $5 a day for their roof. So every day they would send you would get $5 a day. You'd probably get people that would do this because you don't, you know, in a 20-year lifetime or in a 20-year span, you wouldn't go spend $10,000 one time on coffee, but you would spend $5 or $10 every day on Starbucks or wherever you get your coffee, and you go, that doesn't feel bad. Maybe we should put a program together like that. That would be brilliant. That'd be brilliant, wouldn't it? $5 a day. You can get this roof for $5 a day, and then every day that you would just get $5 a day for a cup of coffee a day. That'd be brilliant. That's a good idea.
I'm going to try and come up with some objections so that you can practice your closing skills.
I love objections. Bring them on, baby. Because if you ain't getting a real objection, you can't close them anyway. So I'd rather get the objection right up front.
This is a huge topic. I mean, this is something you could literally talk about for hours or days. And, you know, there's a lot of different topics inside of this topic that could be talked about as well. But I think that, you know, there's all kinds of different closing tactics. But if you build the relationship right, you bring the value. If you and your company actually have value to bring the value that you have. Make sure he understands what he's getting. Make sure that the customer, you know, has reasons to trust you. And there's really no reason for them to not hire you. You know, be straightforward. Look them in the eyes when you talk. Shake their hand when you have opportunity to shake their hands. Talk about them. Don't walk in and just talk about you and your solution. Talk about them. Find common ground. Find things that they're interested in. Find things they want to talk about. Walk in the office and you're going to be clued off. Oftentimes they display their hobbies inside there. They might have some golf clubs on the wall, or they might have, you know, a deer head or something. Find things to talk about, and that builds trust to where he feels like, hey, this guy cares about me. He don't just care about my roof. I feel like when you can do all those things, a lot of your hardcore closing tactics are not even necessary. And there's a lot of things that we could talk about. There's, like I said, different forms and different methods and different ways to go about closing. But I feel like if it's relationship first, then the close is going to come easy. And there's times you're going to have to ask some questions. Hey, where are we at in the process? Where are we stacking in here? Where are we coming in at? Don't be afraid to ask those questions. You know, hey, we're getting 3 other bids. You know, we're doing this, we're doing that. Okay, great. When are you going to have those bids in? When's a good time for us to talk again? Setting up appointment. Always set up another appointment, you know, and keep the deal moving forward. The biggest thing with closing is you have to keep the deal moving forward. And at some point, the close will come.
I know there's a couple more things we're going to cover in closing the deal on later episodes. Urgency, asking for objections, things like that. We'll cover more detail, but I love the idea of selling as you are sold. Are you sold on what you're doing? Are you sold on what you're selling? Go out and share it with other people.
I got a little homework for you. Dale Carnegie wrote a book years ago, I think early 1900s, called How to Win Friends and Influence People. If you've not read that book, go grab that book because it's a great read. And the stories inside that book will give you great examples of how you should be treating your customers. Little homework for this week. Thank you for listening to this week's Ethical Sales Podcast.
Hey, before you leave, let me ask you a question. Have you ever struggled with knowing how to open a conversation? Have you ever struggled with knowing how to close the sale? Elias Raber and his twin brother Matt put together a small booklet titled Simplify the Sale that teaches you how to open conversations and how to close a sale. You can download your copy for free at smarterroofer.com/simplify. Again, download your copy for free at smarterroofer.com/simplify.
You're listening on the Verbal Crowd Network. Find more great shows at verbalcrowd.com.